Picture this: the Mediterranean at sunset, waves stained crimson, the air thick with smoke and salt. The year, 1538. The place, Preveza. Across the Ionian horizon, a Holy League armada bristles with crosses and cannon fire. Spain, Venice, and the Papal fleet, united to end Ottoman rule at sea. But cutting through the haze comes a different kind of storm. 80 sleek galleys under Hayreddin Barbarossa, the Sultan's pirate-turned-admiral, his scarred face glinting like tempered steel. The wind dies. The Christian fleet hesitates. Barbarossa does not. Fireships ignite. Janissaries swarm decks in waves of iron and flame. By nightfall, the sea itself burns. 20 enemy ships swallowed by the dark. And as the smoke clears, the cross yields to the crescent. The Ottoman tide has turned. But this isn't just one battle. This is the story of how an empire conquered the waves. From Gallipoli's first docks to Constantinople's blockade. From Zonchio's inferno to Djerba's triumph. Each clash carving a path to maritime supremacy. These weren't just naval skirmishes. They were the lifeblood of an empire, the sails that carried the Ottoman crescent from the Black Sea to Gibraltar. So, stow your doubts and brace for battle, because this isn't just history. It's a voyage into the Ottoman tsunami, where sea, steel, and faith collided to forge one of the greatest naval powers the world has ever seen.
Part 1. Setup. From river raiders to sea sultans. Before the roar of cannons at sea, before the crescent fluttered over ocean winds, the Ottomans were land-bound warriors, horsemen of Anatolia, heirs to steppe and sword. Yet the call of the sea was irresistible. By the mid-13th century, they realized what every empire must: he who controls the water commands the world. The first step came not with sails, but with strategy. Under the heirs of Osman I, the Ottomans cast their eyes toward the Bosphorus, that shimmering strait dividing continents and channeling the wealth of the Black Sea. In 1378, the capture of Gallipoli from Genoese hands changed everything. The once Christian port became the empire's naval womb. Its dry docks hammering out a new breed of warship, its shores echoing with the rhythm of saw and oar. The fleet was tested by time. Timur's invasions burned it to the waterline, but Mehmed I rebuilt, crafting not just ships, but a doctrine. By Murad II's reign, Ottoman galleys already prowled the Aegean, their presence unsettling Venice's grip on the islands. Then came Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire's golden captain. Under his gaze, the sea itself became imperial territory. He forged alliances with the Barbarossa brothers, the legendary corsairs of the Maghreb, Oruch, the fearless martyr, and Hayreddin, the cunning admiral who turned piracy into statecraft. They brought with them the fury of the Mediterranean, corsair fleets, captured ports, and tactics that danced between chaos and calculation. Venetian spies reported in awe, "The Turks build ships as they build armies without end." And they were right. By 1538, the Ottoman navy numbered more than 300 warships, sleek, deadly galleys capable of matching Christian cannon for cannon, oar for oar. Their hulls were strengthened to bear heavy bombards, their decks thronged with janissaries, and their captains drilled in hybrid warfare, Byzantine boarding, Arab maneuvering, and Italian firepower. From Algiers to the Adriatic, the Mediterranean began to turn Ottoman blue, but mastery of the waves would come without blood, brilliance, and betrayal. Next stop, Gallipoli to Zonchio, where the empire's wooden walls were baptized in fire and the dream of maritime dominion began.
Part 2. Bridgehead and Blockade. Gallipoli, 1378, and Constantinople, 1453. The Ottoman naval legend didn't begin with grand armadas or imperial glory. It began in the fog of dawn, with wooden boats and raw ambition. The capture of Gallipoli, March 1378. While Byzantine princes tore each other apart in civil war, the Ottomans seized opportunity like a sword. Under Savji Bey, a small fleet of raiders struck the Gallipoli Peninsula, a jewel guarding the Dardanelles. Under cover of morning mist, archers loosed flaming arrows from longboats as waves hissed beneath them. The Genoese garrison, veterans of Mediterranean warfare, found themselves outnumbered 3-1, their defenses collapsing in hours. When the smoke cleared, the Ottomans had taken more than a fortress. They had taken a future. Gallipoli became the empire's European cradle, a living shipyard hammering out the empire's destiny, plank by plank. It was the first Ottoman bridgehead into Europe, the anchor from which they would storm the Balkans and eventually the world's imagination. Without Gallipoli, there would be no fleets of Suleiman, no Barbarossa, no Preveza. This was the first ripple of the Ottoman tsunami, the moment a land empire discovered its sea legs. The naval siege of Constantinople, April-May 1453. Fast forward 75 years, the sea roared once more. Mehmed II, the 21-year-old conqueror, brought to the Bosporus not just an army, but a vision to claim the city that had haunted emperors and caliphs alike. He unleashed a 400-ship armada, a floating forest of galleys and transports that blackened the horizon. Constantinople's defenders held the Golden Horn behind a massive iron chain, a barrier that had stopped 1,000 fleets. Mehmed's answer was audacity. On April 22nd, his men dragged 70 ships overland, across greased timbers and rolling logs, pulling them from the Bosporus into the Horn like specters gliding over earth and stone. By morning, Byzantine sailors awoke to horror. Ottoman sails inside their safe harbor, their own fleet cornered, their hope drowned. Greek fireships tried to burn the intruders, but were repelled amid smoke and chaos. Panic spread along the walls as Mehmed's guns pounded from both land and sea in a symphony of destruction. When the final assault came on May 29th, it was the navy that sealed the city's fate. By choking off supplies, dividing defenders, and hammering the sea walls, Mehmed proved what few had ever imagined. The age of stone walls was over. The age of cannon and sail had begun. Part 3. Aegean Grip. The Battle of Zonchio, August 1499. The Mediterranean, once a Venetian lake, was about to change color. The Ottoman-Venetian War, 1499 to 1503, would decide who truly ruled the waves, the aging lion of Venice or the rising crescent of Istanbul. The stage. Venice, mistress of the Adriatic, had long controlled trade routes from Crete to Cyprus. But Ottoman expansion under Bayezid II threatened her maritime monopoly. The Sultan unleashed his seahawk Kemal Reis, uncle of the famed cartographer Piri Reis, a sailor forged in corsair raids and storm battles. Opposing him stood Antonio Grimani, a wealthy Venetian merchant-turned-admiral commanding 130 ships, many laden with the pride and gold of La Serenissima. His fleet anchored in Zonchio Bay, off Sapienza, Greece, a sheltered harbor that would become a floating inferno. The battle, August 12 to 25, 1499. At dawn, the horizon shimmered with Ottoman galleys, nearly 100 strong, cutting through the Aegean mist. For days, Kemal Reis probed Grimani's formation, feinting retreats, drawing the Venetians into chaos, testing their discipline like a cat with cornered prey. Then, the trap was sprung. Ottoman gunners unleashed early broadside volleys, iron and flame ripping through the Venetian line. Fire ships, small galleys packed with pitch, tar, and oil, sailed straight into Grimani's formation. The sea erupted in towers of fire and black smoke, ore crews screaming as hulls burned to the waterline. Grimani hesitated. His sub-commanders begged him to counterattack, but fear won. By nightfall, his flagship withdrew. In the confusion, 15 Venetian ships were lost and the rest fled north. The retreat was a humiliation so great that Venice later exiled Grimani, only to pardon him years later when he became Doge, a bitter irony of history. Kemal Reis pressed the victory mercilessly. By 1500, he stormed Moudon and Coron, two of Venice's fortified jewels in the Peloponnese, breaking her centuries-old hold on Greek waters. When peace came in 1503, Venice was forced to cede its Aegean bastions, its maritime crown cracked. The legacy. Zonchio was more than a battle. It was a revolution in naval warfare. It marked the first true open-sea gunpowder naval engagement in Mediterranean history, where cannons and firepower outweighed oars and courage. The Ottomans proved they could outbuild, outshoot, and outthink the greatest navy of Christendom. Zonchio was the Mediterranean's first Trafalgar, fought half a millennium early, a battle where the sea turned Ottoman blue.
Part 4. Mediterranean Mastery. Preveza, 1538, and Djerba, 1560. The Mediterranean in the 16th century wasn't just a sea, it was a chessboard of empires, and the Ottomans were moving for checkmate. Under Suleiman the Magnificent, their fleets became extensions of imperial will, floating fortresses carrying both gunpowder and glory. And at their helm stood the sea wolves of Islam, Hayreddin Barbarossa and Piale Pasha, masters of wind, tide, and terror. The Battle of Preveza, September 28, 1538. The Holy League was meant to be the West's answer to Ottoman sea dominance. Over 200 ships, Venetian galleasses, Spanish carracks, papal galleys, all under the seasoned command of Andrea Doria, Charles V's admiral. Across the waves, Barbarossa commanded just 122 galleys, fewer ships, fewer guns, but far more cunning. The scene, Ionian Sea near Preveza's sun-bleached reefs. Barbarossa anchored close to shore, using sandbanks and shallow waters as natural shields, knowing Doria's heavy ships couldn't maneuver there. For hours, Both fleets stared at each other, sails taut in the wind. Then came Doria's fatal flaw: hesitation. Suspicious of his Venetian allies and unwilling to risk his flagship, he delayed engagement. Barbarossa seized the moment. As dusk bled across the horizon, Ottoman galleys surged forward in a crescent formation, ramming into the League's disordered vanguard. Boarding cries echoed over cannon fire. Janissaries stormed Venetian decks, scimitars gleaming crimson in the sunset. 12 Christian ships burned, others fled into the dark, their banners sinking beneath black waves. By nightfall, the Holy League shattered, losing 1,500 men to the Ottomans' 800. Doria retreated, humiliated. The Mediterranean belonged to Barbarossa. When word reached Istanbul, Suleiman made him Kapudin Pasha, Grand Admiral of the Ottoman Navy. From Algiers to Alexandria, Ottoman banners now ruled the coasts. The victory locked down the empire's lifelines: grain, gold, and faith, turning the Mediterranean into a Turkish lake. The Battle of Djerba, May 9, 1560. 2 decades later, Europe tried again. Pope Pius IV rallied a new coalition: Spain, Genoa, and Malta, under Don Garcia de Toledo, Spain's viceroy of Sicily. Their goal was destroy the Ottoman fleet and retake North Africa, beginning with Djerba Island off the Tunisian coast. At first, the plan worked. The Christian fleet surprised Piale Pasha's 120 galleys, catching the mid-refit in the Djerba lagoon. 20 Ottoman ships sank under the first barrage. Victory seemed nearby. But the sea is fickle, and so were the winds. As night fell, Toledo hesitated to press the attack. Piale Pasha regrouped, calling in reinforcements from Tripoli and Algiers. At dawn, the Ottoman counterstrike crashed down like a storm. Their gunners, firing from shallow-drafted galleys, raked the Christian hulls trapped in the surf. Fires spread from ship to ship. Within hours, the Christian fleet disintegrated. 20 vessels sunk, dozens captured. Don Garcia fled with a handful of survivors. The aftermath was chilling. An island of skulls rose near Djerba, built from the bleached remains of 5,000 Christian sailors. It stood for decades, a grim monument to Ottoman supremacy. Djerba marked the zenith of Ottoman naval power. From Gibraltar to the Levant, no Christian fleet could challenge them for half a century. Their mastery funded conquests in Hungary, pilgrimage to Mecca, and the golden age of Ottoman science and art. Together, Preveza and Djerba sealed the fate of the Mediterranean. They weren't mere battles, they were declarations that the empire of the land had become an empire of the sea. The Ottomans had turned the tides, literally and figuratively, ruling from the Danube to the deep blue.
Part 5. Legacy. Waves of empire ebb at Lepanto. By the mid-15th century, the Ottomans were no longer just masters of the land, they were lords of the seas. From Gibraltar to the Suez, more than 300 ships bore the crescent standard, their sails billowing over 3 continents. The Mediterranean pulsed to the rhythm of the imperial drum. Every victory, Gallipoli, Zonchio, Preveza, Djerba, tightened their grip. The seas became arteries of empire. Spices from the Red Sea, tribute from the Maghreb, soldiers and scholars flowing between continents.
naval supremacy wasn't just defense, it was destiny. Behind it rose a golden age, Mimar Sinan's domes crowning Istanbul's skyline, Topkapi's courts glittering with the spoils of empire, Suleiman's laws binding it all together. But even the mightiest tide meets resistance. In 1571, a new Holy League, Spain, Venice, and the papacy, gathered under Don Juan of Austria. Their fleets met the Ottomans off Lepanto in the Gulf of Corinth. Over 400 galleys clashed in a storm of gunpowder, splintered oars, and prayers shouted across the waves. For the first time in a century, the Ottoman navy broke. 200 ships burned or sank. Tens of thousands perished. The sea ran red for miles. It was hailed across Christendom as divine retribution, the end of Ottoman dominance. Yet the empire's resilience defied the myth. Within a single year, Istanbul's shipwrights rebuilt 400 new galleys, a feat unmatched in naval history. Lepanto was no death knell, but it marked a tide turning. The age of oars was ending, and Europe's wind-driven ships, faster, cannon-laden, and ocean-bound, would soon outpace the galleys of the port. Still, the legacy endured. Ottoman fleets continued to guard the Red Sea, Black Sea, and Eastern Med, projecting power deep into the 17th century. And even today, echoes of that maritime empire ripple in modern Turkey's blue homeland doctrine, a call to reclaim influence over ancient waters once ruled by Barbarossa's hand. The Ottoman tsunami had reshaped the world, but even tsunamis recede. Its lesson endures. Empires that master the seas may command history, but must never forget that every tide eventually turns.
Conclusion. Empire of waves, echoes of eternity. So, sailors of history, what do you think? Was the Ottoman navy the true heart of an empire that spanned worlds, or a storm that burned itself out? From the shores of Gallipoli's dawn to the smoke of Lepanto's dusk, the story of the Ottoman seas is one of vision, fire, and fate. It began with river raiders on wooden boats and ended with fleets that made kings tremble. Every cannon blast at Zonchio, every corsair raid from Algiers, every ship dragged overland at Constantinople, each wave carried the empire's ambition farther. These weren't just battles, they were acts of transformation. The Ottomans didn't just rule the Mediterranean, they redesigned it, turning trade routes into arteries of empire and coastlines into fortresses of faith. And yet, the same sea that crowned them also whispered their limits. Lepanto was more than a battle, it was a prophecy. The age of galleys yielded to the age of sails, and the storm that had ruled the world began to ebb. The crescent still gleamed over the waters, but the tide had turned westward. Still, their legacy endures. Modern Istanbul's skyline, mosques like sails against the sky, still mirrors the empire's old rhythm. Turkey's fleets still patrol the same waves where Barbarossa once prowled. The sea remembers. This was the Ottoman Tsunami, the saga of how an empire rose from the rivers of Anatolia to command the world's most contested sea, and how, like all tides,
It flowed, it roared, and it fell. Until next time, keep your sails full, your powder dry, and your history alive. Because out there, beyond the horizon, the echoes of empire still wait.